is your audience. You want to keep the viewers going up and not down. Underneath that, you've got the screens. The one on the right is the broadcast screen. That's what the viewers are seeing at home. It's only a couple of seconds behind the master screen there in the middle. That's the one you control. Now, the four small screens on the left show the different signals coming from the studio, and you can choose between them using the numbered buttons on the vision mixer at the bottom left. Don't worry, I'll talk you through it and you'll pick it up in no time. Now, have a look to your left. These plugs control everything in the studio. I've left them set up for you, so provided you haven't fiddled with them, all you have to do now is throw the master trip switch and we're in business. Once you've got the power on, face the front again. You can see on the broadcast screen that we're in the end titles for the show before us. Fortunately, they go on for fucking ages, so there's plenty of time for me to explain. Oh, right, okay, they're over, so we haven't got long now till the broadcast. Right, quickly, mate, look down under the desk. You can see a load of videotapes on the left. They're your adverts. Pick any three and load them into the machines on the right. When you've done that, look up to the front again.
Four old ladies from East Grinstead. That's followed at 8 p.m. by award-winning documentary series The Shape of Now, which tonight looks at the history of the knee-length sock and its importance during the Great Blackouts of 1871. Not one to miss. At 9 p.m, sit back and relax with multiple award-winning movie The Freedom of Being Colin, taking us all the way up to 11:15, where, as usual...
Prawn and mayonnaise?
You know seafood makes me go out in pustules.
Yeah, I thought it might increase our viewing figures.
Every day. You offer me prawns every day.
Mate, load the ads. The broadcast is starting soon. Right, quick as you can. Select screen one.
4.
But now, it's time to join Jeremy Donaldson.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main stories tonight.
Okay,
Moving on
we're
up.
all good.
The
Next
election
is going to be the
window
throw to the
has
news
just
titles on screen 2.
Hopeful or
There'll be a countdown, but I'll count you in as well. Just relax, mate. It's all gravy.
Buys Honest Andy's Totally Independent and corners the flowered market. Top chat. Sports fans everywhere celebrate as popular footballer Johnny Hamsleeves wins Sports Personality of the Year. And a spoonful of sugar. Meghan will be chatting with movie star Lawrence Bunderclatch about his new movie, The Medicated. And, of course, we'll be going live to Advance headquarters to hear what the leaders of this fledgling party have to say on their historic route.
Right, button
That's
2
all coming up on
in
tonight.
3,
National
2,
Nightly News.
1. Now, lovely, mate. Next thing is to throw back to Jeremy with button 1 when that globe in the middle shrinks down and vanishes. Here it comes. Switch to screen 1. Now, lovely,
But
mate.
first, the votes are in and it's a decisive win for Advance. The landslide...
Listen, mate, we often get a bit of interference around this time of night, so keep your eye on the machine on the bottom right. You can move that white dot up and down, avoiding the interference using the yellow knob or your scroll wheel.
of a severe lack of actual policies and of being deliberately vague. The opposition parties have all conceded defeat to Advance's overwhelming mandate, but have yet to appear publicly.
Right, it's going well. All you've got to do now is play the advert at the end of the segment. Make sure you don't play it too early or we'll all get fired. Now the clock at the top is counting you down to the advert. When it reaches 0, press one of the 3 play ad buttons over there at the bottom right. I normally play the first one at the first break and so on, but you can play them in any order you want. I'll count you into it as well, but keep your eye on the clock.
We'll be going live to Advance HQ to hear the co-leader's acceptance speech.
And 3,
That's all coming
2,
up.
1, advert.
1 minute back, everybody. Jeremy, I need you to fill after the ads.
What? Why?
Wanker Snatch is running late.
Oh,
I thought I'd ask him about the election.
personally, I wouldn't try to confuse him with any big words.
That's the same policy we use with you. I thought that was our little secret. He doesn't remember anything I tell him.
I'm deeply uncomfortable with your burgeoning friendship. Yeah.
A yellow, a purple, Neil's deals are unreal.
Wicked. We made it to the first ad break. You're doing great, mate. But this is where it starts getting a bit trickier. This next sequence is what we call a multicam sequence, because you're going to be cutting between multiple cameras to keep things interesting. A lot of it's down to personal taste, but here's 3 good rules of thumb. 1. try and keep the shot on whoever is doing the talking. 2, don't stay on the same shot for too long, 10 seconds at the most. So if you're on the person who's talking, try and throw in the odd reaction shot or pull out to the wide shot for a bit just to keep it interesting. 3, don't stay on reaction shots for too long. A couple of seconds is usually enough. Then the audience want to see who's doing the talking, yeah? Stick to these rules and you'll be fine. It's not as complicated as it sounds. You've seen programs on television, haven't you? Make it look like those. Might as well get screen 1 selected now. No need to wait for the broadcast to start. Try and stay ahead, mate.
Crazy Neil's got crazy deals.
We're coming back from the break. Quiet in the studio. Thank you so much. 10 seconds, everybody.
We got it, you want it. You want it, we got it, you want it. You
Going in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome back to the National Nightly News. Later, we'll be hearing from shock election winners Advance. But first
Get
off,
ready to go to
political
Megan on
reporter
screen
Megan
4.
Wolf is here with a star of both stage and screen. Megan?
Thank you, Jeremy. Megan Wolf.
Get on screen 4.
And today I have a guest who starred in everything from Shakespeare
Right,
to
go
the
to
Shopbox
Blunderclatch
films.
on screen 3 when she says his
Joined
name.
today by none other than Lawrence Blunderclatch. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, my dear, I do hope you believe me when I tell you that being with you here today is among...
Switch to 2 for the wide now.
May I say, having you here with us is among ours.
Right, now just try and stay on whoever's
Your
talking.
latest movie, which is called The Medicated.
The medicated, yes.
Wow, what was that like?
Well, as I said to Peter at the Rat, that's Peter Jensen, the director.
Give us a look at Megan's
He's
reaction.
a wonderful chap, he really is. I've worked with him on several movies, all terribly successful. I said to Peter,
No, all right then.
what a wild ride this has been. And you know
Been
what?
on that shot a bit long.
I really meant that.
Wow, that is fantastic. And am I right in saying that the character you play in this movie is quite an academic one?
Absolutely right. A scientist.
Was that a challenge at all?
What exactly are you implying? But seriously, yes, you're right. It was a complete departure from my last starring role when I played Sergeant Brock Rockman in Bullet Man. You'll remember that that was the true story of one
Remember
soldier's
the
fight for a
10-second
love.
rule.
A love, of course, for freedom. I think it's grossed over $1 billion, but honestly, who's counting?
It's a role that saw you scoop 2 Best Actor awards, if I remember correctly.
It's so sweet of you to mention it, but I really am not
back to
in
who's
it for the
talking.
awards, although those 3 little statues do take pride of place on my mantelpiece.
With all the others, I'm sure. So, if you're not doing it for the awards, what is it then that drives you?
That is a beautiful question, Megan, and not easy to answer. Like you, I'm afraid. Cut me, and I will bleed. And often, that's how it feels, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Bleeding, giving, suffering for one's audience. I suppose in the end, I do it for the difference it makes. I do it for the people that I inspire. The little people. But most of all, I think I do it for the positive change that I can bring about in the world.
And today, of course, we're in for some real change, it looks like, in the coming few months. What do you make of this historic election result?
Oh, well. Well, now you're asking. Historic election result. Indeed. Historic is the word. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Very difficult. But, I think I've always been quite clear that when it comes to politics, one should always strive to not fuck things up.
Shit, he swore. Oh, well, don't worry, he won't do it again.
Sorry, I said fuck.
Shit, he did it again. Okay, don't panic. I'll explain how to deal with swearing at the
The
break.
Medicated, which opens next week
Right,
around
they've swapped the shot of Jeremy on screen 1 for a VT of the movie clip. You'll get a countdown on the screen, but I'd just let Megan cue you in.
My character, Dr. Lance Hemlock, is faced with a decision that could affect humanity's very survival.
Exciting stuff. Let's take a look. Exciting stuff.
Watch out for that interference, mate.
I don't understand it.
Got a looks like Blunder Clench is losing it in the studio. I'd love to hear what he's saying, but don't switch to it now. You can go to the archive when the broadcast's done. We keep everything.
I don't know that.
No, Lance, we mustn't. Think of Carol.
Dr. Lance to you, Miss Flanagan. Did it for you, baby. All for you.
Dr. Hemlock.
I'm gonna change the world, you know? Don't let listen to you.
Dr. Hemlock.
You told me, but I didn't listen.
Doctor.
I'm drowning, Lance, you said.
You need to see this.
No, it's all too late.
Look at this!
The virus. The sterility. This formula. This is the key.
We could stop it all.
At the
Yes.
end of the clip, you'll want to play another ad. Remember to use the clock at the top to count you in.
If we should.
Right, I guess I better explain how to deal with bleeping out swear words. As you've probably noticed, the broadcast screen, here, is about 2 seconds behind the master screen, here. When someone says a naughty word, the bleep button lights up, like this. 2 seconds later, you'll hear that swear word going out on the broadcast, and you need to hold down the bleep button or the spacebar on your keyboard for as long as the swear word lasts. It can take a bit of practice getting used to hearing 2 things at once. Just stay calm and you'll get it. And if you can't tell when to bleep, just above the button, you'll literally be able to see the sound scrolling by. All you gotta do is hold it down while the red bit is over the red line. Simple. Of course, if you do it by eye, you'll have to take your eye off the screens. That's why real professionals do it by ear. Most people like to have the volume of the broadcast screen a little bit below the master screen. Let's set it now. As you turn it up, you'll hear the advert getting louder. Good. You're set to start censoring. Like I say, it takes a little practice, but I'll try and help you through it, and soon we'll have you bleeping like a pro. Remember, button lights up, count 1, 2, and hold it down.
Get rid of those tricky tummies.
Remember to select screen 1 now that you've got the feed. Don't wait for the broadcast to go live. That's too late. You can use the number buttons on your keyboard, 1 to 4.
Seriously, Atlas.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. And I'm told we can now go live to Advance Headquarters. I'm told we can now go live to Advance Headquarters. Peter Clement and Julia Salisbury are about to make their acceptance address.
Cut to the outside broadcast.
Go for it, Pat.
Shall I start?
Get ready
Go
to
for
bleep.
it, Pat.
Thank you all for coming. And, well, thank you all for coming. And, well, what a
Where
day.
do I start? They said we
What
couldn't
a
do
day.
it. They said we couldn't do it. Every dirty low-down every dirty low-down liar against us. You trick liar against us. You saw right through their shit.
I'm sorry about the language there. I'm sorry about the language there.
Sorry about that. I've had a couple of celebrations. Coarser than the ground is funny. Coarser than the ground is...
Memorably put. But to be honest, who can blame Peter for celebrating? Throughout the campaign, you've heard us say that Advance are not a political party. Advance are not a political party. When things are going well. A party is what you have when things are going well. Suffering. You don't need a party. When the country is suffering, you don't need a party. A team that can change things. A team that can change. But today is day one of a new future. A new future. Fairer future. A better. So perhaps we should all be celebrating.
Except for the rich. For them the party's over. They shouldn't be. For them the party's over. They shouldn't be putting their shitting pants on and opening their dusty checkbook.
Again, colourfully put. Again, colourfully inaccurate. But not before we came out here to address the nation, we used the Assets and Wealth Act to pass the Assets and Wealth Act. We have produced working with the tax office every person in the country with wealth into the millions.
Probably you rather you don't. Because the likes of you and me are not welcome in their gated communities.
Tomorrow we will be introducing a sweeping reform of the tax system. No more hiding wealth offshore. No more hiding wealth funds or creative accounting. Trust funds or creative accounting. Unavoidable set of tax laws. Unavoidable
all you bastard public school snobs have got nowhere to hide. I've got nowhere to hide. We revoke your passports. We revoke your passports. You want to leave like you threatened before the election. That's fine. Before the election. That's fine. You're going to pay first. You're going to pay up.
Advance are going to turn this country from a nation of warring individuals to properly fund health and education, to raise the living standards of us all.
Billions we'd have to raise. You'll see when we've reclaimed what's ours. That's absolute. So to you posh twats.
The people who pay your pittance to serve them drinks in their private clubs. The people whose children you raise. The people whose children you raise. Advance have this to say to you. Advance have this to say to you. We are coming for your sports cars and your mansions and your vineyards. We will put the wealth of this country back. We will put the wealth of this country back in the hands of the people who created it. In the hands of the people who created it.
Today.
Yes. It ends today. It ends and tomorrow today. We'll start making it fair again. We'll start making it fair again. Promised we would.
And until then, ladies and gents, you'll get pissed.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. Thank you for your time.
Well, interesting acceptance speech there. Interesting acceptance speech there. Our apologies for the fruity language. And our apologies for the fruity language. Out for you in time. Hopefully we got that bleeped out for you in time. Someone's going to be in trouble. If not, someone's going to be in trouble. So, as the country braces itself for new government, that's all from us this evening at the National Nightly News. That's all from us this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with full coverage of the first day under Advance. With full coverage of the first day under Advance. Have a peaceful. I'm Jeremy Dawson. Have a peaceful.
And we're out. Good job, everybody. Same again tomorrow. Good job, everybody. Same again tomorrow. Call times are on board.
This is some weird fever dream. This is some dying fever dream. I'm dying now.
You should be so lucky.
As you've probably noticed, the broadcast screen, here, is about 2 seconds behind the master screen, here. When someone says a naughty word, the bleep button lights up, like this. 2 seconds later, you'll hear that swear word going out on the broadcast, and you need to hold down the bleep button, or the spacebar on your keyboard, for as long as the swear word lasts. It can take a bit of practice getting used to hearing 2 things at once. Just stay calm, and you'll get it. And if you can't tell when to bleep, just above the button, you'll literally be able to see the sound scrolling by. All you gotta do is hold it down while the red bit is over the red line. Simple. Of course, if you do it by eye, you'll have to take your eye off the screens. That's why real professionals do it by ear. Most people like to have the volume of the broadcast screen a little bit below the master screen. Let's set it now. As you turn it up, you'll hear the advert getting louder. Good. You're set to start censoring. Like I say, it takes a little practice, but I'll try and help you through it, and soon we'll have you bleeping like a pro. Remember, button lights up, count 1, 2, and hold it down.
72% likely to get rid of those tricky tummies.
Remember to select screen 1 now that you've got the feed. Don't wait for the broadcast to go live. That's too late. You can use the number buttons on your keyboard, 1 to 4.
Seriously, AdWords.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. And I'm told we can now go live to Advance Headquarters, where the two leaders, Peter Clement and Julia Salisbury, are about to make their acceptance address.
Cut to the outside broadcast.
Go for it, Pat.
Shall I start?
Get ready
Okay.
to play.
For it, Pat.
Thank you all for coming, and, well, thank you all
Where
for
do
coming.
I start?
And, well, what a
Where do I
day.
start?
They said we
What
couldn't
a
do
day.
it.
They certainly did.
They used every dirty, low-down, lying
every
southern
dirty,
bastard
low-down,
trick
lying
they had against
southern
us. But you, trick they had against us. You saw right through their shack.
I'm sorry about the language there. I'm sorry about the
I've had a
language
couple
there.
of celebrations. Sorry about that. I've had a couple of celebrations.
Coarser than the ground is funny. Coarser than the ground
Memorably
is...
put. Memorably put. But to be honest, who can blame Peter for celebrating? Throughout the campaign, you've heard us say that Advance are not a political party. Advance are not a party is what you have when things are going well. A party is what you have when things are going well. You don't need a party. When the country is suffering, you need a party.
Remember the 10
That can
second
change things. Team that can change. But today is day one of a new future. Fairer future. A better. So perhaps we should all be celebrating.
Except for the rich. For them the party's over. They shouldn't
For
be
them the
celebrating.
party's over.
They should
be
be
putting their
shitting pants on and up in their dusty chambers. On and up in their dusty chambers.
Again, not inaccurate, but not before we came out here to address the nation, we used our executive powers to pass the Assets and Wealth Act. To pass the Working with the Wealth Office, we have produced a definitive list of every person in the country with wealth into the millions.
You know this sort of... Probably you
rather you don't.
Because the likes of you and me are not welcome in their
Tomorrow we will be introducing a sweeping reform of the tax system in this country. No more hiding wealth offshore, no more hiding wealth funds or creative accounting. Trust funds or creative accounting. Fairer, unavoidable set of tax laws.
So all you bastard public school snobs have got nowhere to hide. I've got nowhere to hide. We revoked your passport. We revoked your passport. You want to leave like you threatened before the election. That's fine. Before the election. That's fine. You're going to pay first. You're going to pay up.
Advance are going to turn this country from a nation of warring individuals to properly fund health and education, to raise the living standards of us all. The pundits
said we'd have to raise billions. You'll see when we've reclaimed what's ours. That's absolute ferret. That's absolute. So to you posh twats,
the people who pay you a pittance to serve them drinks in their private clubs, the people whose children you raise,
so they've got time to get even. So they've got time to get even.
Advance have this to say to you. Advance have this to say to you. We are coming for your sports cars and your mansions and your vineyards. We will put the wealth of this country back. We will put the wealth of this country back in the hands of the people who created it. In the hands of the people who created it. Yes. It ends today. It ends and tomorrow today. We'll start making it fair again. We'll start making it like we promised we would.
And until then, ladies and gents, I suggest we all get pissed.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. Thank you for your time.
Well, interesting acceptance speech there. Interesting acceptance speech there. And our apologies for the fruity language. Hopefully we got that leaked out for you in time. Hopefully we got that leaked out for you in time. Someone's going to be in trouble. If not, someone's going to be in trouble. So, as the country braces itself for new government, that's all from us this evening at the National Nike News. That's all from us this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with full coverage of the first day under Advance. With full coverage of the first day. I'm Jeremy Dawson. Have a peaceful. I'm Jeremy Dawson. Have a peaceful.
And we're out. Good job, everybody. And we're out. Good job, everybody.
Right, looks like you've got it now. Thanks for all the help, mate. I've got to go. Ferry's about to leave. Probably won't be coming back. Job's yours, mate. Good luck.
Dying now.
You should be so lucky. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Not coming for a drink?
No, got a date.
This is the story of
Try not to get murdered.
Stupid and asleep. It's about how you were promised the Elysian fields, but you ended up filleting Satan for the salty buns. It's happening.
left you a voicemail, I thought you'd end up here. Most people come into the archive room when they're done with a broadcast. That way you can see what you did and how it looked to the public. As you can see, there's 3 sections to the archive. Broadcasts, that's what you've put out. Rushes, which is all the stuff that was on all the screens. And adverts, which is any advert that you've chosen to show. So let's have a look at the broadcasts. Okay, on the left you can see all the broadcasts that you've done. You can also get to hear from the main menu if you don't actually want to do a broadcast, you just want to see some of your past work. Select any of those
In a
and
few
click
moments,
load
we'll be
tape.
going live to
Why not
tonight's
watch what you
National
just
Nightly
did?
News.
When you're done,
But before
hit
that,
back.
let's take a look at what's coming up later on tonight on Channel 1. At 7 o'clock, it's the semi-final of the quotation game, and it's a nail-biting quiz tonight as a team of nuclear physicists take on 4 old ladies from East Grinching. That's followed at 8 p.m. by award-winning documentary series The Shape of Now, which tonight looks at the history of the knee-length sock and its importance during the Great Blackouts of 1871. Not one to miss. At 9 p.m, sit back and relax with multiple award-winning movie The Freedom of Being Colin, taking us all the way up to 11:15, where, as usual, Dr. Adrian Atkinson Blimey will be grilling his guests in Incisors, and tonight sees a return for leading economist Katie Brightman. Finally, at midnight, it's the National Weather Report, before we say good night until tomorrow. But now, it's time to join Jeremy Donaldson for the National Nightly News.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main stories tonight. Moving on up, the election win that experts said just couldn't...
Right, click on rushes and let's have a look at those. Okay, these 4 screens, they're exactly the same as the 4 screens that feed you the studio signal when you're doing the actual news. Of course, the difference here is you can mute any screen you like or any combination of screens and you can have a listen to what was going on behind the scenes. Just select any segment, that's any bit between ad breaks over on the left, and hit
Prawn and
play.
mayonnaise?
When you're
You
done
don't see if you
checking
make it
out the
up.
backstage secrets, hit back.
10 seconds. How I show love.
You're trying to kill me. Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main stories tonight. Moving on up, the election win that experts said just couldn't happen. Hopeful or hostile? Controversy as global mega corporation Remington's Fist buys Honest Andy's Totally Independent and corners the flowered market. Top chat. Sports fans everywhere celebrate as popular footballer Johnny Hamsleeves wins Sports Personality of the Year. And a spoonful of sugar. Meghan will be chatting with movie star Lawrence Blunderclatch about his new movie, The Medic.
Apparently he's... Whoever has to bleep this.
Hi, I'm...
Hey! Oh, Christ, it's noisy in here, Jesus. Right, Hamilton, we just get out some flags, darling. Yeah, I'll take that one with me. Cheers. Right, oh, that's better. Let's get set up and get on with it, eh, so I can get back to my guests. First of all, let's get the power on. You need to get at least the bottom 4 plugs on. Right, let's load up the adverts. You might want to have a bit of a think about it. Your decisions have consequences, don't they? Right, you can see they finally got the old headline system up and working again. And the Vision Mixer's already in headline mode because headlines always come at the start. It's really simple, mate. These 2 buttons at the bottom of the Vision Mixer, you can see they now have A and B on them. And they're to help you pick image A on the left bottom screen here, or image B on the right bottom screen here. It's really simple. This little clock here will count down the number of seconds you have to make your decision. Provided you make a decision in that time, you're fine. And you can change your mind as much as you want until the clock reaches 0. But if you don't make any decision, you'll be fired before you even get to make another choice. I just want to say one more thing, mate. The pictures you choose to show of these people, well, that's how the public is going to perceive them, and that's going to affect their lives. So like with the adverts, choose carefully. And we're off. Good luck, mate. If I get time off, we'll get back in the next break. Yeah, I'm coming, darling.
Finally tonight at 10 p.m, it's a bit of escapism with Lawrence Plantercatcher's acclaimed action movie, Bullet Man, taking us up to the National Weather Report and close down at 1:15 midnight. But before all that, it's time to go over to Jeremy Donaldson for tonight's National Night
Good evening,
News.
I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Good evening, main headlines Jeremy Donaldson. Destination headlines tonight. At the end of Advance's first full week in office, at the end of we ask exactly who's leading this chart. We ask exactly tonight. I'll be discussing what the new future may hold. I'll be discussing with a leading economist in radical. With a leading economist.
Any decision, you'll be fired before you even get to make another choice. I just want to say one more thing, mate. The pictures you choose to show of these people, well, that's how the public is going to perceive them, and that's going to affect their lives. So like with the adverts, choose carefully.
No,
and we're off. Good luck, mate. If I get time, I'll call you back in the next break. Yeah, I'm coming, darling.
Get one of those. My friend Janet says theirs gets really hot.
Is this Janet who thinks dogs have their own secret language?
With Lawrence
Yeah, the one that mistrusts the moon.
acclaimed action
10
movie,
seconds,
Bullet
everybody.
Man,
What the best
taking us
source
up
of
to the
consumer
National Weather
advice then?
Report and
Don't blame
close
me
down
when it
at
explodes.
1:15
Going in
midnight.
5,
But
4,
before all that,
3.
it's time to go over to Jeremy Donaldson for tonight's National Night
Good evening,
News.
I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main headlines tonight. Destination unknown. At the end of Advance's first full week in office, we ask exactly who's leading this charge. Tonight, I'll be discussing what the new future may hold with a leading economist and radical free thinker. With the Assets and Wealth Act on the brink of raising living standards in the vast majority of the country, I'll be asking my guests if we're on the way to a new future. Out with the old, Remington's Fist have appointed Sophia Remington as their new CEO. The following photo, taken from our archive, gives us a sense of this influential young firebrand who, at the tender age of 23, becomes the youngest female CEO in history. Sophia Remington has always impressed. She was top of her class at university and graduated with the highest honours, immediately being asked back to lecture. The markets have responded favourably to Sophia's appointment, with stocks rising 30 points in light of the announcement. In her first press conference this afternoon, Sophia announced a children's toy named Mr. Snugglehouse. Sophia promises it'll be all the rage this Christmas, but concerns have been raised about the product's safety. Making a splash. Intrepid scientist Dr. David Wong and marine biologist Ingrid Swarsborg-Horgensford have today set off to explore Dante's taint. The recently discovered cave system was previously thought unreachable, But thanks to a new breakthrough in underwater flower technology, the pair hope to successfully reach the imposing central cavern and the undiscovered plant species it contains. This is, of course, only the latest in a series of successful expeditions for this unlikely pairing. In a joint statement about the dangers their team might face, the pair stated, "We will face the plentiful challenges together, like we always have." Playing the field, rumours abound as sporting legend Johnny Hamsleeves is snapped leaving Bush, one of the capital's hottest clubs. The footballer was caught while out celebrating being named Sports Personality of the Year last week, as reported by this very programme. And judging from the angle and velocity of that spray, it looks like Johnny may have been celebrating a little bit too much. I certainly wouldn't want to be his dry cleaner. And grievous bodily charm. With advance promising a radical new position on crime, how afraid should we actually be? I'll be going live around the country to talk with people who've seen the criminal justice system from every perspective, with more and more powers passing to the police, and less oversight. Are we using an advanced-shaped sledgehammer to crack a nut? All that and Megan Wolf with a group of young actors already experiencing the positives and Wealth Act firsthand. They'll be talking and performing later. That's all. And performing. National Nightly News.
Welcome back, everybody. Get in quickly, please.
Yeah, I had to make the book in because.
Government's swift enactment of the Assets and Wealth Act, we're talking about Advance's first week in office and what the new future holds. Joining me are Katie Brightman, a leading economist, and Alan James, author of Alan James is Right, The Free Man's Guide to Waking Up. Alan, the government certainly haven't dragged their heels on delivering some of the legislation they promised. But what does the Wealth Act mean for us?
Nothing, Jeremy. We're still vassal slaves, we're just in prettier cages.
A confident dismissal there. Katie Brightman, do you agree?
I'm afraid I don't, no. I think that Advance have realised that the current economic system of unlimited, unending growth is untenable, so they're changing things up.
There I agree with you. They're moving to the next steps in the grand plan.
Grand plan, Alan?
It's all in my book. Alan James is right, Jeremy. We're to become the great herd, ignorant, sterile, and short-lived. That's what they want.
Or perhaps Advance have just realised that if we carry on the way we are, we will destroy ourselves and this planet in a mad orgy of consumption, if you'll excuse the colourful metaphor.
Yes, orgy is the right word. Only it'll be the overlords having an orgy on our poor broken backs. It's all in my book. Alan James is...
Shamelessly self-promoting? Katie, how do you think the rest of the world will respond to this new approach?
I think they're watching carefully. Advance are the most disruptive threat that the world powers have faced since the last Great War.
Yes, Katie's right. War is inevitable. And this will not be a war like we've ever seen before. We're talking millions of deaths. We're talking high-tech weapons that can level entire cities. We're talking...
Out of the wrong orifices?
Mock me all you like, Jeremy, but when they murder your parents and they poison your food and they take you away to their camps for hypno-brainwashing, we'll be laughing then.
That might be a great way to sell books, Alan, but you know full well that isn't going to happen in a democracy.
Democracy is dead.
Yes, Advance are radical, and change is always frightening, but the truth is that the Wealth and Assets Act has made more than 90% of the population wealthier and is on target to produce a permanent end to poverty.
Bollocks! What this young lady doesn't understand, Jeremy, is that these are the same people. Maybe they've rebranded, but it's all a little circus act to keep us from seeing the tyrant behind the curtain.
That's where you're wrong, Alan. For a start, they've mobilised the youth vote like we've never seen before.
You say mobilise, I call it grooming. The grooming of an entire generation to walk happily into eternal bondage. They're like psychic paedophiles.
But based on the facts, Katie, what are your predictions?
The Assets and Wealth Act is only the first step. Advance now have a historic budgetary surplus, and as well as properly funding our public services, they're already funneling unprecedented amounts into scientific research in the arts.
Or, as I call them in my book, Frankenscience and opiates. Like opiates, see?
Can we get back to the issue at hand, please, Alan?
This is the issue. It's all coming from the water, the chemicals. They're pumping it full of belief juice.
Don't get me wrong, I want to see these changes, but only if they're sustainable. If Advance lose their power after spending half of our GDP on dismantling infrastructure, that could be catastrophic.
The catastrophe is that they're succeeding. They've got us sat here talking about their puppet show.
All right, we're running out of time. Quickly, Alan. What does the future look like to you, Alan?
A bleak space where we've all been figuratively sodomized into submission.
Oh, of course. Katie?
We might be on the eve of a brave new world. God knows we need some change, but we need to be cautious. Let's walk forwards with our eyes open.
Two very different visions of the future there. Alan James, Katie Brightman, thank you for joining me. When we come back, I'll be investigating Law and Order before Megan meets some beneficiaries of the Assets and Wealth Act. That's all coming up tonight on the National Nightly News.
1 minute back.
You know, I think they might do some good.
I hope so too, Jeremy.
Absolutely fucking fine, I tell you. How's it going, actually? Fuck it, I don't care. I hate the fucking news. Oh, bloody hell, I love this tune, though. All right, mate, see you later. Bye.
I don't know what she meant by that.
While keeping us informed of all the ups and downs to help make things even better. With a vast range of activities available, building the nation's future has never...
Don't make any decision, you'll be fired before you even get to make another choice. I just want to say one more thing, mate. The pictures you choose to show of these people, well, that's how the public is going to perceive them, and that's going to affect their lives. So like with the adverts, choose carefully.
No,
and we're off. Good luck, mate. If I get time, I'll call you back in the next break. Yeah, I'm coming, darling.
Get one of those. My friend Janet says theirs gets really hot.
Is this Janet who thinks dogs have their own secret language?
Yeah, the one that mistrusts the moon.
10 seconds, everybody.
Not the best source of consumer advice, then.
Don't blame me when it explodes. Going in 5, 4, 3.
It's time to go over to Jeremy Donaldson for tonight's National Night.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Our main headlines tonight. Destination unknown. At the end of Advance's first full week in office, we ask exactly who's leading this charge. Tonight, I'll be discussing what the new future might hold with a leading economist and radical freethinker. With the Assets and Wealth Act on the brink of raising living standards for the vast majority of the country, I'll be asking my guests if we're on the way to a new future. Out with the old, Remington's Fist have appointed Sophia Remington as their new CEO. The following photo, taken from our archive, gives us a sense of this influential young firebrand who, at the tender age of 23, becomes the youngest female CEO in history. Sophia Remington's appointment is a risk for the giant mega corporation. Sophia, as our regular viewers will be aware, has always been a wild child and has been romantically linked to several movie stars and sports personalities. In her first press conference this afternoon, Sophia announced a children's toy named Mr. Snugglehearts. Sophia promises it'll be all the rage this Christmas, but concerns have been raised about the product's safety. Making a splash. Intrepid scientist Dr. David Wong and marine biologist Ingrid Swarsborg-Horgensford have today set off to explore Dante's Taint. The recently discovered cave system was previously thought unreachable, but thanks to a new breakthrough in underwater flower technology, the pair hope to successfully reach the imposing central cavern and the undiscovered plant species it contains. Many were surprised when the two scientists, who've shared a fractious rivalry for many years, decided to undertake this expedition in each other's company. However, the two have released a joint statement in which they opine geniuses don't have to like each other to achieve remarkable results. Playing the field, rumours abound as sporting legend Johnny Hamsleeves is snapped leaving Bush, one of the capital's hottest clubs. The footballer was caught while out celebrating being named Sports Personality of the Year last week, as reported by this very programme. And judging from the angle and velocity of that spray, it looks like Johnny may have been celebrating a little bit too much. I certainly wouldn't want to be his dry cleaner. And grievous bodily charm. With Advance promising a radical new position on crime, how afraid should we actually be? I'll be going live around the country to talk with people who've seen the criminal justice system from every perspective. With more and more powers passing to the police and less oversight, are we using an Advance-shaped sledgehammer to crack a nut? All that and Megan Wolf with a group of young actors already experiencing the positive side of the new Assets and Wealth Act firsthand. They'll be talking and performing later. That's all coming up on tonight's National Nightly News. In the wake of the government's swift enactment of the Assets and Wealth Act, we're talking about Advance's first week in office and what the new future holds. Joining me are Katie Brightman, a leading economist, and Alan James, author of Alan James is Right, The Free Man's Guide to Waking Up. Alan, the government certainly haven't dragged their heels on delivering some of the legislation they promised. But what does the Wealth Act mean for us?
Nothing, Jeremy. We're still vassal slaves, we're just in prettier cages.
A confident dismissal there. Katie Brightman, do you agree?
I'm afraid I don't, no. I think that Advance have realised that the current economic system of unlimited, unending growth is untenable, so they're changing things up.
Here I agree with you. They're moving to the next steps in the grand plan.
Grand plan, Alan?
It's all in my book. Alan James is right, Jeremy. We're to become the great herd, ignorant, sterile, and short-lived. That's what they want.
Or perhaps Advance have just realised that if we carry on the way we are, we will destroy ourselves and this planet in a mad orgy of consumption, if you'll excuse the colourful metaphor.
Yes, orgy is the right word. Only it'll be the overlords having an orgy on our poor broken backs. It's all in my book. Alan James is...
Shamelessly self-promoting? Katie, how do you think the rest of the world will respond to this new approach?
I think they're watching carefully. Advance are the most disruptive threat that the world powers have faced since the last Great War.
Yes, Katie's right. War is inevitable.
Thank you, but that isn't
And
what
this will not be a war like we've ever seen before. We're talking millions of deaths. We're talking high-tech weapons that can level entire cities. We're talking...
Out of the wrong orifices?
Mock me all you like, Jeremy, but when they murder your parents and they poison your food and they take you away to their camps for hypno-brainwashing, we'll be laughing then.
That might be a great way to sell books, Alan, but you know full well that isn't going to happen in a democracy.
Democracy is dead.
Yes, Advance are radical, and change is always frightening, but the truth is that the Wealth and Assets Act has made more than 90% of the population wealthier and is on target to produce a permanent end to poverty.
Bollocks! What this young lady doesn't understand, Jeremy, is that these are the same people. Maybe they've rebranded, but it's all a little circus act to keep us from seeing the tyrant behind the curtain.
That's where you're wrong, Alan. For a start, they've mobilised the youth vote like we've never seen before.
You say mobilise, I call it grooming. The grooming of an entire generation to walk happily into eternal bondage. They're like psychic paedophiles.
But based on the facts, Katie, what are your predictions?
The Assets and Wealth Act is only the first step. Advance now have a historic budgetary surplus, and as well as properly funding our public services, they're already funneling unprecedented amounts into scientific research in the arts.
Or, as I call them in my book, Frankenscience and opiates. Like opiates, see?
Can we get back to the issue at hand, please, Alan?
This is the issue. It's all coming from the water, the chemicals, they're pumping it full of belief juice.
Don't get me wrong, I want to see these changes, but only if they're sustainable. If Advance lose their power after spending half of our GDP on dismantling infrastructure, that could be catastrophic.
The catastrophe is that they're succeeding. They've got us sat here talking about their puppet show.
All right, we're running out of time. Quickly, Alan, what does the future look like to you?
A bleak space where we've all been figuratively sodomized into submission.
No, of course. Katie?
We might be on the eve of a brave new world. God knows we need some change, but we need to be cautious. Let's walk forwards with our eyes open.
Two very different visions of the future there. Alan James, Katie Brightman, thank you for joining me. When we come back, I'll be investigating law and order before Megan meets some beneficiaries of the Assets and Wealth Act. That's all coming up tonight on the National Nightly News.
1 minute back.
You know, I think they might do some good.
I hope so too, Jeremy.
How's it going, actually? Fuck it, I don't care. I hate the fucking news. Oh, bloody hell, I love this tune, though. All right, mate, see you later. Bye.
I don't know what she meant by that.
Us informed of all the ups and downs to help make things even better. With a vast range of activities available, building go-getters, you can be sure that your children will be rolling.
I'm just saying we'll do what I can.
Bullshit, you will. She's good. You know she is.
Set up a word in, that's all I can do.
10 seconds, everybody. Little JD's got a big bag culture with water.
If that sticks,
Bring
I'll
in
just
5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. In our second segment, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the state of law and order in our country. Advance have already tasked what they are calling a solutions team to move this serious social problem to the top of the list. Tonight, we go behind the headlines to meet the people who live with the criminal justice system every day of their lives. First up, we have Gregory Judge, a lawyer who sees the problems close up on the front line. Can you hear me, Gregory?
Yes, I've got you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
What's it like on the front line of the hard face of the cold hand of justice?
Well, as you can imagine, Jeremy, we are massively understaffed in this country. We're working every hour we can just to try and cope with the caseloads on our desks.
Which must affect the quality of support you can offer.
Well, we can barely keep up with demand, Jeremy. There just simply isn't enough being done at a systemic level to relieve the problem.
Greg?
We need more support from ministers. We need change at a structural level,
I'm
Jeremy.
leaving, Greg.
Not a good time, darling.
It never is it? I'll be at my mother's.
Just hang on. The problem isn't a local one, Jeremy. It's nationwide. Just give me 5 minutes. I'm talking to Jeremy Donaldson.
Oh, have you mentioned your affairs?
No. Well, the affairs of the Justice Department that we should be concerned about.
Hello, Mr. Donaldson.
Hello, Mrs. Judge.
We need legislation to relieve the pressure on our public
Sorry
servants.
to interrupt the news, Mr. Donaldson. Can I have a moment to tell my husband I'm leaving him?
Yes, I totally understand. Quite the picture of a burdened legal sector there. Gregory Judge, thank you for joining us. Next, I'm joined by Police Chief Constable Bob Peel, a man with a very different perspective on our nation's crime. Do you think there's a problem with the system, Bob?
I'm sure we all do, Jeremy. I'm sure we all long for a return to the days when you could safely walk the streets of your community at night, looking in through windows and generally enjoying your neighbours without the risk of being terrorised by some thug with a knife. Or kosh.
So you feel the streets simply aren't safe anymore? Where have we gone wrong, Bob?
Well, that's not a simple question, Jeremy, but I think it all comes down to moral decay. We've diluted our culture and lost touch with what it means to be a citizen of this once great country. Also, as the vicar noted in Sunday's sermon, we probably shouldn't have banned hanging.
And to what do you attribute this moral decay?
Foreigners, gays and gypsies mainly. It's all in the Bible. Look, Leviticus clearly states that... Oh, bugger, hang on a moment. Jeremy, bloody gimp's escaped. Delia, could you give me a little help, please, dear? As I was saying, Jesus didn't like immigrants much, did he?
And just to be clear, you think it's the immigrants who are responsible for the moral decay?
Absolutely, Jeremy. Back in your box, Clive. Back in your box. Delia, I really could use a little help with this.
Oh, sorry, darling. I was spaying the badgers.
Yes, I'm talking to Jeremy Donaldson. Clive, could you put him back in his box?
Clive, you know it's Wednesday. You put back in your gift space.
And whose responsibility is it to make a change, Bob?
Well, it is certainly not the responsibility of the decent, good, white people of this... Oh, hold on just a moment.
Oh, Clive, this simply won't do. Not.
Clive, I am not having this again. As I was saying, Jeremy, moral decay. Crime is the responsibility of the criminal, no one else. Look, everyone has a sob story, but we don't all end up as barbarians, do we? Look, when our daughter Alice comes home with an A-, does she go on a killing spree? No, she takes 3 of her pills and hides under the stairs like a normal child.
Thank you, Bob. Bob Peel there, really locking down the police's position on morality. And finally tonight, hopefully uninterrupted, it's time to get to the heart of the matter. Tony Dawson has recently been released from prison after serving 3 years for aggravated assault, burglary and menacing a swap. He's agreed to talk to us today, which is also, I believe, his birthday. Many happy returns, Tony. Many happy returns.
Cheers, Jez. Call me Titwank Tony. Everybody else does.
No, I'm not going to be doing that. Can you tell us what it's like in prison, Tony?
Titwank Tony. Titwank Tony. Prison's a mixed bag. Structure's quite nice, but It's a constant battle against institutionalisation, as you can imagine. And obviously, titwanks are quite hard to come by.
I'm picking up that you're not alone there, Tony.
Titwank, Tony. Yeah, sorry, my friends are throwing me a surprise party. Good bunch of lads.
Okay, well, we're trying to let you get back to that party as soon as possible. First, let me ask you this. Do you feel that your time spent in prison helped to rehabilitate you in any way, Tony?
Titwank Tonys! I don't think it's as easy as that, Jez. Yeah, I think asking that is an oversimplification.
It sounds like it's getting quite busy there, Tony, but let's try and soldier on. Since leaving custody, have you been able to find a new job?
Yeah, all the boys are here. Big Chris, Little Chris, and Vampire Chris.
This one's, yeah?
One sec, love. Titwank Tony's on the news. Rehabilitation's difficult with the current system, Jez. It's just not set up for it, you know? It's inherently unjust.
So, do you feel tempted to... I'm sorry, who's this now?
You are joking. Chrissy Freebollocks has only got Mr. Fancy, oh.
Titwank.
Come on now, fellas, I'm on the news.
It seems like we've caught you at a bad time.
I can't really hear you, mate. It's getting a bit busy here.
Yes, we seem to be losing the signal here, Tony.
Fucking way, Las Bolitas!
Well, we're just trying to get that signal back. I think we... Yes? Tony? Tony, I mean, we're literally away for 2 seconds. How has this happened, Tony? Can you hear me? Well, we seem to have lost our train of thought. Hopefully you, the viewer at home, have managed to glean a broader understanding of the serious and complex issues around law and order. After the break, Megan will be live with some plucky young thespians. Don't go away. We'll be back after these messages.
1 minute back, everybody.
Went well.
Piss off.
Mate, I ain't got long and I'm quite drunk. It's been a great night. In this next section, there's a bit of music. If you edit in time with the music, you can see the result on the Vision Mixer, and the public will love that. Don't worry if you don't, though. You won't get punished for it or nothing. Just try and stay in the groove. Also, one last tip. When the music starts, turn down the broadcast volume. Right, enjoy the music bit. God, I love music. God, I'm so pissed. I think I might go and throw up in a bit.
I'm sure something's wrong. Come on, it's welcome back. How hard can it be? This is on you.
10 seconds, everybody. We're going to open on Megan. Camera 2. Going in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome, Black. I'm Megan Wolf, and on tonight's Culture Spot, I'll be chatting with one of the first beneficiaries of the Assets and Wealth Act, a team of inspiring young people from Scritchford Sixth Form College, who today received a grant from Advance to take their play, Hey, Friendship, on a tour of local secondary schools. Welcome to you all. Well, let's start with you two, Harriet and Charlotte Winstanley-Hamilton. Girls, you must be thrilled.
We are, Megan. We're overwhelmed, to be honest.
And I believe you two are sisters, is that right?
Yes, Charlotte's my oldest. I'm the older, more popular one. I'm joking.
Harriet and Trey were really the ones who came up with the whole idea.
So, Harry and I were shooting the breeze in the cafeteria, and I said, hey, let's actually do something.
So I went to look for a drama teacher.
But she'd been laid off due to budget cuts. Fortunately, I directed a pantomime when I was at university, so I knew the ropes, as it were.
Oh, right, yes, but you're the maths teacher, aren't you?
Yes, that's me, Jeff Algebra, maths teacher.
Maths is really important.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Maths is really important.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
As is theatre. It's one of the oldest art forms in history. Aristotle believed.
I just think that when we travel around all these problem schools and the poor kids see us, they say, hey, I really want to be like those attractive kids. And that's a very beautiful and powerful thing. We touch our audiences, and they touch us right back.
I suppose with a surname like Algebra, there was really only one choice of career for me. My wife, Angela, and I, we often laugh about it.
Angela Algebra.
Yes.
We just want to bring a bit of song and joy into people's lives.
And teach people about the difficult issues. The issues in the play are what really matter.
And I think you're going to be showing us an extract from this play, aren't you?
That's right. Put into context,
I play a young first year who's having some troubles at school.
Her character doesn't actually have a name, yeah, because in a way she's like all of us.
It's like a metaphor. Maybe she's you at home, or like maybe she's you, Megan.
Maths is really important.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Put it in, coach.
Yes, thanks, Steve.
Right, well, I'm going to have a little chat with your teacher while you run off and get ready. I can't wait to see it. That's it, that way. So, Jeff, when did you first hear about the riot?
2 days ago. A letter from Advance arrived at the school. Now, the headmaster thought it was all a prank, but his secretary retrieved it from his bin and brought it to me.
How? How did you react?
I also threw it in the bin. But then, Harriet and Trey rescued it, and they rang the number at the bottom of the page, and next thing you know, we're on tour.
Wow. Well, I think we can all guess which way you'll be voting from now on.
Do you know what? It's funny because Angela and I don't usually vote. We're not very political. I'm a mathematician, of course, and she's a paraplegic mainly. But we did used to watch that Peter Clements DIY show back in the day, and so we thought, why not? Let's have a go with this whole democracy thing.
Okay.
And here we bally well are.
Good stuff.
Fucking brilliant!
So, let's have a look at a short section of Hey, Friendship.
Dear Diary, I'm not sure I can take another day at this school. Another day of tears. Another day of fears. But still I walk the corridors alone. Dreading what might be around every corner.
What's around the corner? What's around the corner? What's around the corner?
Oh, hi Gary.
Oh heavens no! It's Gary the Fist.
Gary the Fist.
Going somewhere, little first year?
Great. I've been looking for some poor victim to bully all morning. But will this make me feel better about my violent father?
Excuse me, I'm late for maths. It's my favourite subject. It's so important.
Maths is for losers. What? Maths is for losers.
My arm's stuck, coach.
Just keep going for fuck's sake.
Right, maths is for losers. Now, give me your lunch money.
Double lunch for me today, but why am I only truly happy when I'm eating?
Not today, Gary the Fist.
What do you mean not today? Who are you? My arm's free, coach.
Brilliant, keep going.
Right, who are you to stand up to me? I'm Gary the Fist, and you're just a sad little girl with 2 gay dads who's all alone.
That's where you're wrong, Gary the Fist. These are my 2 new friends. Vanessa is captain of the netball team.
Yeah.
And Blake owns a motorbike.
Yeah.
But I can't fight all 3 of you, and I don't have any friends of my own.
Take a look at me. Take a little look at my face. I could be you. She could be you. And you could be me.
Or you could be me.
Life can be cheeky if you work as a team.
It's my choice to be mean. So stop now, make a different choice.
Hey, listen up, I won't take no crap. Who says middle class girls can't rap? I ain't afraid of your crew laps. I'm a mother-loving rebel, but I still love maths.
Hey, kids, I'm Gary the Fist. People think that folks like me probably shouldn't exist, but that's just prejudice, and I'd do better if you knew the way that I became Gary the Fist. council estate. The park was hip, but the flats weren't great. My dad used to come home drunk and late, and he'd hit my mum for dinner, he had to wait. Where's my dinner, woman?
It's not ready.
Where's my dinner, woman?
Go.
Don't make me ask you again.
Hitting women is wrong.
I guess life's pretty hard on a council estate. 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 It's so damn hard on a council estate.
Life can be peachy keen.
Yeah.
If you work as a team.
Just work as a team.
It's your choice to be me.
It's my choice.
So stop now, make a different choice.
Listen to that inner voice.
Friendship!
Well, thankfully that's all we have time for tonight on the National Nightly News. Join us tomorrow night for all the headlines from across the country. My name's Jeremy Donaldson. Have a peaceful night.
And we're out.
What the little fuck was that?
I believe that was art.
I believe I've got a 14-inch cock, but doesn't make it so.
I have a similar belief about adequate paychecks.
Oh, someone please get these twats out of my studio.
Right from the pores to give you the crisp, brittle skin you've come to expect. New Judico Shop.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Jeremy Donaldson. I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Jeremy Donaldson. I'm Jeremy Donaldson. Jeremy Donaldson. Good evening. I'm Jeremy Donaldson.
Hello, mate. I see they've got the store back. That's great. I love fucking shopping. Sorry. It's a bit of a big night, to be honest. Anyway, over here, that's how much money you've got. You'll get more money the better the broadcast you do. These tabs take you to the bits and pieces and sections of the store. You can fix stuff, you can upgrade stuff, or you can just buy really cool stuff to put around the studio. Right, mate, final thing you gotta know. If you want to buy something, you just click on it and go ka-ching. But there's no refunds. No refunds, so take care, make sensible decisions.